She found a briefcase in her back seat worth more money than she'd made in 3 years. No cameras. No witnesses. Nobody watching. She was a single mom. Behind on the electric bill. Her daughter's field trip deposit was due in 2 days, $45 she didn't have. And the man who left it? One of the wealthiest men in New York City. She could have kept it. She could have disappeared. Nobody would have ever known. Instead, she turned the car around. And what happened next changed both of their lives in ways neither of them saw coming. The briefcase sat on the back seat like a secret the city was trying to keep. It was black. Polished. The kind of thing that didn't belong in a taxi. Maya noticed it the second she dropped off her fare at the corner of 5th and Madison, a tall man in a charcoal suit who had stepped out quickly, talking into his earpiece, not looking back. Not looking at anything except wherever he was going next. She called out through the window. He didn't hear her. Or didn't stop. She pulled over, put the car in park, and turned around. The briefcase was expensive. She could tell just from the hardware, thick brass locks, his initials were stamped into the leather near the handle. N.A. She had never owned anything with her initials on it. She wasn't sure she ever would. Her phone lit up. A notification from her daughter's school. A reminder about the field trip deposit due Friday. $45. $45 she didn't have. She looked at the briefcase. She looked at her phone. And then she did what Maya Ellison always did when the world offered her an easy way out. She chose the harder road. She didn't know yet that the harder road was about to lead her somewhere she never could have imagined. Before we go any further, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community all over the world. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button now. We tell stories that prove one honest moment can change an entire life. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Maya Ellison was 34 years old, and she had been driving a taxi for 3 years, 2 months, and 11 days. She knew the exact number because it was the same amount of time since her husband, Daniel, had walked out. He hadn't done it dramatically. There had been no shouting, no thrown dishes, no door slamming hard enough to shake the walls. He had simply packed a bag one Tuesday morning while their daughter Lily was at school, set his keys on the kitchen counter, and left a note that said, "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore." Maya had read that note approximately 40 times before she stopped reading it. She'd spent the first week in shock. The second week in denial. The third week calculating how to survive. She had been a marketing coordinator before. Good at her job, decent salary, a future that felt stable if not exciting. But the job had required a commute to an office downtown, and with Daniel gone and Lily only 7 years old and childcare costs what they were, the numbers hadn't worked. She'd run the math 40 different ways. They never added up. A friend from her old neighborhood had suggested rideshare driving. Set your own hours. Be there for Lily in the mornings and evenings. Drive when she's at school. Maya had downloaded the app, passed the background check, and bought a used sedan that was clean and reliable if not new. That was 3 years ago. Lily is 10 now. She's smart, funny, and a little more serious than most kids her age. The kind who notices more than people think. She does her homework without being told. Makes her own lunch for school. Sometimes, when Maya comes home exhausted and falls asleep on the couch, she wakes up with a blanket over her and the kitchen cleaned up. Her daughter. The reason she keeps going. The job isn't anything special. Most days it's just the city, traffic, noise, and people trying to get somewhere. Maya got used to being another driver on the road. Just the person getting you from point A to point B. Most passengers barely notice her. That's fine. She's not doing it for the conversation. She was driving so that Lily had school clothes and lunch money and a mother who came home every night. That Tuesday, Maya started driving at 6 in the morning. It was late October. Cold enough that her breath fogged the windshield before the heater warmed up. Still dark too, with the streetlights glowing orange against the grey sky. She dropped off a nurse near the hospital on 7th. A college student heading to the airport with too much luggage and not enough time. A retired teacher going to a doctor's appointment on the Upper East Side who wanted to talk about her grandchildren, and Maya listened, genuinely, because she liked people even when she was tired. Then came the man in the charcoal suit. He'd gotten in at the Park Meridian, one of the newer glass and steel towers that had gone up downtown in the last few years, the kind with a lobby that looked like a museum and a doorman who wore a uniform that probably cost more than Maya's monthly car payment. The man had barely glanced at her when he got in. He was already on the phone, his voice low and clipped and certain in the way that people's voices got when they were used to being listened to. "Corner of 5th and Madison," he said. "I have 8 minutes." She got him there in 7. He got out still talking. The door barely closed behind him. The car still smelled faintly of his cologne, something expensive and understated, when she noticed the briefcase on the back seat. Maya sat with it for exactly 4 minutes. She knew this because she watched the clock on her dashboard, needing the certainty of numbers while everything else felt uncertain. The briefcase had weight when she lifted it. Not just physical weight, though it was heavy, solid, clearly full of something important, but the kind of weight that came with the knowledge of what it might contain. She wasn't naive. Men in suits like that didn't carry briefcases with brass locks and monogrammed initials unless those briefcases contained things that mattered. Documents. Contracts. A laptop. Maybe cash. She did not open it. She thought about Lily's field trip deposit. She thought about the electric bill that was already 10 days overdue. She thought about the winter coat she'd been putting off buying for 2 months because Lily's old one still technically fit even though the zipper stuck. She thought about all of those things, and then she thought about something else, the look on her daughter's face every morning when Maya said goodbye. How Lily always stood in the doorway and watched until the car turned the corner. How she had her father's eyes and her mother's jaw and a heart that was entirely her own. If she disappeared with this briefcase, and part of her brain was running those calculations, just the logistics of it, the way desperate minds did, what was she teaching Lily? That survival justified anything? That integrity was a luxury for people who could afford it? No. She checked the app. The passenger's drop-off location was logged. She could see the pickup address, the Park Meridian on Grand Avenue. She didn't have a name, just an account number, but the building's doorman would know who she was talking about. She turned the car around. Nathan Aldridge had not always been rich. This was something that people who met him now found difficult to believe, because wealth had settled on him with such complete authority that it seemed like it must have always been there. But it hadn't. He had grown up in a 2-bedroom house in Columbus, Ohio, the son of a high school shop teacher and a woman who did bookkeeping for local businesses from a desk in the spare bedroom. They had been careful with money in the way that people were careful when they had lived close enough to the edge to understand what the edge felt like. Nathan had watched his father grade papers at the kitchen table and known, even then, that he admired the man deeply and wanted something different for his own life. Not out of shame. Out of hunger. The particular hunger of a person who understood what was out there and intended to reach it. He built Aldridge Capital over 22 years. It started as a small trading firm. He grew it by seeing things early and working harder than anyone else in the room. He made his first million at 31. His first 100 million at 38. Now the number was so big he sometimes didn't even think about it. That would have shocked his father, but Nathan got used to it. He was 47. He had a son, Jeremy, studying architecture at Cornell. Jeremy called every Sunday without being reminded. He had a house in Greenwich that he mostly used on weekends and an apartment in the Park Meridian that he mostly used for early mornings and late nights. He was healthy, had great lawyers, and knew a lot of people, but not many real friends. He also had, as of approximately 7:45 that Tuesday morning, a serious problem. The briefcase. He knew it was missing before he even got to the building door. The feeling hit him right away and made his stomach drop, the kind of panic you feel when you realize something really important is gone. He turned around fast. The taxi was already halfway down the block, slipping into traffic, just another cab in a city full of them. He'd called his driver, Oliver, who was already across town on another errand. He'd called building security. He'd called his assistant, Frederick, who began contacting the taxi company within 3 minutes but could offer no immediate solution because the cab was moving and the driver's information was routed through a system that would take hours to process properly. The briefcase contained, among other things, a single USB drive. That drive held documents that Nathan had spent 6 weeks preparing for a meeting happening in 4 hours, a meeting with 3 institutional investors who controlled a combined $40 billion in capital and who were considering a significant stake in his new fund. He could reconstruct most of the documents. He had backups. But the drive also held something else, a handwritten analysis he'd done in his own hand, based on proprietary research, that summarized his entire strategic thesis in language he could not quickly reproduce and could not afford to have fall into the wrong hands. In 4 years of building Aldridge Capital's latest venture, that document was the one thing he would have called irreplaceable. He stood on the corner of 5th and Madison and for the first time in a long while, Nathan Aldridge felt genuinely helpless. The Park Meridian's doorman, a broad-shouldered man named Gerald who had been at his post for 11 years, was the first to see Maya pull up. She got out of the car with the briefcase in both hands, the way you carried something that wasn't yours, carefully, at a slight distance, making sure anyone watching could see she was offering it up rather than holding onto it. "Excuse me," she said to Gerald. "I had a fare from here earlier this morning. Man in a grey suit. He left this in my car." Gerald's expression went through several things in rapid succession. Surprise. Recognition. Relief. He reached for his radio. 20 minutes later, Maya was sitting in a lobby chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent, holding a cup of coffee that someone had brought her without asking, watching a man in an expensive suit cross the marble floor toward her with the particular energy of a person who had just been told something they couldn't quite believe. Nathan Aldridge stopped in front of her. He looked at her. He looked at the briefcase on the table beside her, undisturbed, the brass locks still fastened. "You came back," he said. "You left it in my car." She said it simply, like it was the only logical sequence of events. He sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of them said anything. He was trying to read her, Maya realized. Looking for the angle. The ask. "I have to ask," he said. "Why?" "I mean, do you know what this briefcase might be worth to someone?" Maya wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. "No," she said. "And I didn't try to find out." "You didn't open it?" "No." "Why not?" She looked at him directly. "Because it's not mine." Nathan Aldridge made a living judging people. It was part of his job. After years of it, he trusted his instincts. He looked at the woman across from him. Her hands around a coffee cup. Calm eyes. No angle. No hidden motive. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "I want to give you something," he said. "For returning the briefcase." Maya looked at it but didn't take it. "I didn't do it for money," she said. "I know," Nathan said. "That's why you should have it." She shook her head. "I'm okay. I need to get back to work." She stood up, straightened her jacket, grabbed her keys. Nathan stood too, a little fast. "At least tell me, do you need anything? Anything I can help with?" Maya paused. She thought about her daughter. The school trip payment. The electric bill. A coat that barely worked. She thought about asking a stranger for help. "No," she said. "I'm all right." She walked out. Nathan stayed in the lobby and watched her leave. Something about it stuck with him. It had been a long time since someone made him stop and think like that. Maya went back to driving. What else was she supposed to do? She picked up another passenger near Grand Central. Then a woman going to Brooklyn with a stroller and too many grocery bags. Then a college kid who had clearly overslept and spent the ride looking for his other shoe. Morning turned into afternoon. Afternoon turned into rush hour. Maya kept driving, paying attention to traffic, lights, people crossing the street. She barely thought about the briefcase. She had done what she thought was right. Nathan couldn't stop thinking about it. His meeting went well. The deal looked strong. By all accounts, it had been a good day. Still, his mind kept going back to the lobby. The woman holding the coffee cup. Her simple answer. Because it's not mine. He'd worked with assistants, partners, and advisors for years. People he paid a lot of money to trust. None of them had ever said something that simple. So he asked his assistant to look into it. The next morning, Frederick came back with a name: Maya Ellison. Taxi driver. Clean record. 5-star rating. 3 years on the job. One note from the rideshare company thanking her for helping a passenger during a medical emergency. That was it. Nothing flashy. Just someone doing her job. See if you can reach her, Nathan said. Frederick hesitated. For what, sir? Nathan thought for a moment. I want to offer her an interview. She's a taxi driver. I know, Nathan said. Set it up. Maya's phone rang the next afternoon while she waited in line outside a midtown hotel. She almost ignored it. Ms. Ellison, the man said. My name is Frederick Okafor. I'm calling for Nathan Aldridge. You returned his briefcase a couple days ago. Yes, she said slowly. He'd like to speak with you. When would be a good time? Maya watched people coming out of the hotel with suitcases. What does he want? He'd rather explain himself. Would tomorrow morning work? He has 30 minutes between 8 and 8:30. 30 minutes. Like she was just another meeting on his schedule. She almost said no. The instinct was immediate and familiar, the particular defensiveness of someone who had been disappointed enough times to know that things that seemed like they were going somewhere good usually didn't. But she thought about Lily again. And she thought about the way she always told her daughter, you don't have to say yes. But you have to be willing to listen. Fine, she said. Tomorrow morning. The offices of Aldridge Capital occupied the top 3 floors of a building on Park Avenue that Maya had driven past hundreds of times without ever having a reason to enter. She wore the best things she owned, a dark blazer she'd bought 2 years ago for a school event, clean slacks, shoes that were presentable if not new. She had done her hair carefully. She had told Lily she had an errand to run before dropping her at school, and Lily had looked at her with those 2 perceptive eyes and said, "You look nice, Mom." Are you nervous? I'm always nervous, Maya had told her. That's how you know something matters. That's backwards, Lily had said, very seriously. Nervousness means you care. It doesn't mean you're not ready. 10 years old, this child. Nathan Aldridge's office had floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the city. The view was the kind that cost money just to see, Manhattan laid out below like a map of everything that was possible in the world, if you had enough of the right things. He was standing when she came in. He gestured to a chair. Ms. Ellison. Thank you for coming. You asked me to, she said. It came out more direct than she intended, but he smiled slightly at it. That's fair, he said. I'll get to the point. I've been thinking about what you did since Tuesday morning. And I've been trying to figure out why I can't stop thinking about it. Maya said nothing. I've had a lot of people work for me, he continued. Smart people. Capable people. People I paid extremely well to be trustworthy. And I've been let down more times than I care to count. He paused. What you did was not complicated. You just did the obvious right thing. But in my experience, the obvious right thing is the one people are most likely to talk themselves out of. Maya looked at him. Did you bring me here to tell me I'm unusual? He laughed. A real one. No. I brought you here to ask about your background. What you did before driving. She paused, then told him. About the marketing job. How things had changed and how she ended up where she was now. She kept it simple. No drama. No asking for sympathy. Just what happened and how life moved on. Nathan listened with the complete attention of a man who had learned that listening was one of the most valuable things you could do with your time. I'm starting a new division, he said when she finished. Community investment. Identifying small businesses and individuals in underserved areas who need capital and strategic support, not charity. People with real ideas and real work ethic who've never had access to the right doors. He looked at her directly. I need someone to run outreach and intake for that team. To be the person those applicants talk to first. To assess them. Maya stared at him. You don't know me. I know one thing about you, Nathan said. And in my experience, it's the most important thing. Silence settled between them. Maya looked out the window at the city. She thought about 3 years in a car. She thought about Lily at the door every morning, watching until the corner. What's the salary? She asked. He told her. The number was 3 times what she made driving. She kept her face steady. She was good at that. I'd need time to think, she said. Of course, Nathan said. Take the week. She stood. He stood. Can I ask you something? Maya said. Yes. If I had opened the briefcase, she said. If I had kept it. Would you have known? He thought about that honestly. I would have suspected, he said. But no. I probably couldn't have proven it. She nodded once. That's why it matters, she said. Doing the right thing when no one would know either way. That's the only time it really counts. She left him standing in his office with that sentence sitting in the air like the first real thing he'd heard in months. Maya drove for the rest of that week in a kind of internal weather she couldn't quite name. On one hand, the job. The salary. The possibility of something different, something that used more of her than the hours between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. spent navigating other people's destinations. On the other hand, fear. The fear was real and she respected it. She had trusted a situation before, trusted that her life was stable. She thought the person she built it with cared as much as she did, but she was wrong, and it took her 3 years to stop feeling like everything had fallen apart. She talked to Lily about it. Not all of it, Lily was 10, not her therapist, but the shape of it. Someone offered me a new job, she said one evening while they were making dinner together, Lily standing on her step stool to reach the counter, stirring pasta with great concentration. What kind of job? Lily asked without looking up. Working in an office. Helping people who have good ideas get the support they need. Lily considered this. Like what you'd do if someone needed help finding something. Sort of, yes. Is it scary? Lily asked. Yes, Maya said honestly. Good, Lily said, still stirring. You always say scary means you care. Maya looked at her daughter. You threw my own words at me, she said. You told me nervousness means you're not ready, Lily said. But I told you it's backwards. Nervousness means you care. It doesn't mean you're not ready. Maya was quiet for a moment. When did you get so wise? She asked. I had a good teacher, Lily said simply, and went back to stirring the pasta. She called Frederick on Thursday. Tell Mr. Aldridge I'll take the position, she said. On a 90-day trial basis. If it doesn't fit, I walk away with no hard feelings. If it does, we talk about the terms going forward. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I'll relay that, Frederick said. He sounded like he was trying not to show that he was impressed. Nathan Aldridge, when he heard the terms, laughed out loud in the middle of a budget meeting and said, Tell her it's a deal. Maya started on the first Monday of November. The learning curve was real. She was walking into a world that had its own language, its own rhythms, its own unstated rules. She made mistakes. She asked too many questions on some days and not enough on others. She had to learn systems that had been built by people who assumed a familiarity with finance that she didn't have. But she also had something that the rest of the team didn't. She had spent 3 years listening to people. In the back of a cab, people talked. They talked on the phone, they talked to her, they talked to themselves in the particular free-fall honesty of people who believed they were temporarily invisible. Maya had heard business owners describe their fear of failure in the same breath as their refusal to quit. She had heard single parents lay out complex financial strategies while balancing multiple obligations. She had heard the texture of real ambition, not the polished version people presented to investors, but the raw, slightly desperate version that lived underneath it. When the first round of community investment applicants came through, Maya understood them in a way that the Harvard MBAs on her team simply didn't. She could tell the difference between someone performing resilience and someone who actually had it. She could tell when someone had done the hard internal work of understanding their own business versus when they were repeating language they'd heard from a podcast. She asked different questions. She listened differently. Nathan noticed within the first month. By the end of the 90 days, he called her into his office. "The trial is over," he said. "I know," she said. "So what are we talking about?" He slid a document across the desk. A full employment contract. The salary was 40% higher than what he'd originally offered. Maya looked at it. She didn't let herself react. She had learned, in those 90 days, to keep her face steady in rooms where other people were watching. "This is more than we agreed," she said. "You're worth more than we agreed," Nathan said simply. "And I know what things are worth." She looked at the document for a long moment. Then she picked up the pen. 6 months after Maya signed that contract, she and Nathan were sitting in his office at the end of a long day, one of those evenings where the work had run past 7 and the building had emptied around them and the city outside had shifted from daylight to the particular amber of a late October dusk. They had been reviewing the outcomes from the first cycle of the community investment program. 11 small businesses funded. 34 jobs created in 3 underserved neighborhoods. One restaurant owner in the Bronx who had been on the edge of losing everything had not only survived but had opened a second location. "We did this," Nathan said, not boastfully, just factually, in the way of a person who was still getting used to the feeling of something working the way it was supposed to. "They did it," Maya said. "We just opened the door." Nathan looked at her. He had been trying to identify, for months, he kept wondering what it was about this woman that changed how he thought about his work. It wasn't just that she was good at her job. He had plenty of people like that. It was the thing she'd said in his office on her second visit. Doing the right thing when no one would know either way. That's the only time it really counts. He had built an empire on strategy. On leverage. On knowing what you had and knowing how to use it. And all of that was real, and he didn't regret any of it. But he had quietly, without quite announcing it to himself, started making different decisions since that October morning. Smaller ones, mostly. Choosing the transparent option when the opaque one was easier. Saying the thing he actually meant in rooms where saying the comfortable thing would have served him better. He wasn't sure he would have gotten there on his own. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yes," Maya said, still looking at the files. "When you found the briefcase. That first morning. You said you sat with it for a few minutes before deciding to come back." She looked up. "I did. What were you thinking about?" "In those minutes." Maya considered this carefully, the way she considered most things. "My daughter," she said. "What I was teaching her." Nathan nodded. "That's it?" he asked. "That's everything," she said. He thought about Jeremy at Cornell. The Sunday calls. The way his son spoke about architecture with the same particular hunger Nathan recognized in his own younger self. He thought about what he had been teaching his son without meaning to. The long hours. The cancelled dinners. The way a ringing phone always took precedence over a present conversation. He thought about what a briefcase left in a taxi had quietly set in motion. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" Maya asked. "For coming back," he said. "For all of it." The following spring, Lily went on the field trip. Maya stood outside the school and watched the buses pull away and felt the particular warmth of a problem solved, not dramatically, not with fanfare, but just cleanly and permanently. The coat with the sticky zipper had been replaced before winter. The electric bill was paid. The spare bedroom that had felt like an absence for 3 years had been quietly transformed into a room that felt like the future instead of the past. Maya was not a billionaire. She was not going to be one. That was not the story. The story was that she had driven through a dark October morning and found a briefcase that didn't belong to her. And she had made a choice that was inconvenient and not guaranteed and entirely without personal benefit. And that choice had opened a door. Not because the universe rewarded honesty with fairytale outcomes, but because honesty made her visible to the kind of person who knew what to do with it. She walked back to her car, the same reliable sedan she'd been driving for 3 years, the one that still smelled faintly of the hundreds of strangers who had passed through it and the tens of thousands of miles that had carried them. She wasn't driving it today for fares. She was driving it because she wanted to. Because some mornings the city was just beautiful from behind the wheel, and you could be moving through it without a destination and feel, somehow, exactly where you were supposed to be. She turned the key. She pulled out into the street. And she drove. And that is the story of Maya Ellison, the single mother who drove strangers through a city that didn't always see her, and who, on one ordinary Tuesday morning, made an extraordinary choice. She didn't return that briefcase because she expected a reward. She did it because a little girl with her father's eyes watched her out the door every morning. Because the values you hold when no one is looking are the only values that are actually yours. Nathan Aldridge had $40 billion in assets under management, and he will tell you that the most valuable thing he found that October was not in any of them. It was the answer a woman gave him when he asked why she came back. Because it's not mine. 4 words. And they changed everything. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, the honest choice is rarely the easy choice. But it is always the one that matters. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.